Hello and welcome to the demo of MonitoringResources.org. Today I'm going to show you how to sign into the QA.MonitoringResources.org site. I'm going to walk through the process of creating a study design and link it to a protocol. I'm going to create a user sample file and I'm going to create a sample design. These are the steps that we request you complete if you'd like to participate in the pilot group. So let's get started. To start and to go to the QA site for MonitoringResources.org, type in qa.monitoringresources.org. The link is in their handout. You then need to log in to create content. To log in, click on this login box here, and then enter your username, the same username that you use in your regular MonitoringResources.org site, and your password. If you do not have a username or password, please go to MonitoringResources.org and create one. If you're having trouble with that, or if you can't get your username and password, please feel free to contact me, Becca Scully, at the USGS, and my email is included in your handout. So once you've logged into MonitoringResources.org, we've asked you to create a study design. To create a study design, go to Document, Study Designs, and this will take you to the full list of existing study designs. While you're doing this and creating a study design, I request that you have the SurveyMonkey open and are providing feedback along the way. If the survey doesn't work for your feedback, you could also just jot notes in a Word document and then send me that information. So to create a new study design, click this plus button, and then you will see the Create a Study Design page. In here, you can then create a name of a study design. So for example, we're going to name ours WDFW, Monitoring of Aquatic Habitat in the White Sand River. The name should be concise but informative. You can include information such as organization, location, or species, or so on. We then need to select a monitoring program. So you can scroll through this list and look for your monitoring program. If this list doesn't contain your monitoring program as of right now, I'd recommend just choosing a different one and proceeding through the exercise. So let's look for WDFW, for example. Okay, we select WDFW. Now you need to choose a protocol. So again, you get the full list of protocols, and you can scroll through this and select your protocol. Your protocol is not in here at this time being. I just recommend selecting a different one and then moving forward. We're going to select the CHAMP protocol. Once you've documented name, monitoring program, and protocol, you can hit save, and a study design will be created for you. The study design workflow mirrors the protocol workflow. So as you can see, there's ways to navigate here on the left, and then there's text boxes that you can enter information in. Once you've created your study design, you can walk through the steps and fill in each of the data fields. You can update your name if you're interested. You could change your monitoring program. You could update your protocol. Select a monitoring purpose from this drop-down list. For this example, we will select status and trends monitoring. You can select an estimated cost, select less than $1,000. As you can see, these categories are not required, but it's nice to fill in the pertinent information. We then ask that you include a background. The background for a study design should describe why you would apply the protocol you've selected and the sample designs you're selecting, what management questions you aim to answer. We ask that you're descriptive. If you have diagrams, you can upload them and then reference them here. Your project level information, sort of high level, why we were doing all this, and so forth. We also want to add objectives for this design. The good objective is goal-oriented, measurable, time limit, and specific. So for example, an objective for this would be to understand if habitat quality is improving. You can add multiple objectives. So for example, we had another objective. Next, we ask that you enter some key assumptions. Key assumption for this study might be that because we're applying the CHAMP protocol, that will allow us to share our data and be part of a regional analysis. You can then continue down the form and fill out each of these following fields: quality control and reporting, personnel and training, schedule and budget. We've moved these fields here from the protocol because they are more project level, high level information, and this will allow the protocols to be more reusable. Each field has some help text associated with it that you can read and fill out the field. the sake of this exercise, you can look over those help fields and fill this in. So once you've done that, you've filled in your necessary information, you can hit save, and this study design will be saved. After you've created a study design, we ask that you create a user sample file. A user sample file will then allow you to build a sample design, and then we can link that sample design to this study design, allowing for clear linkages between protocols and sample designs. Create a user sample file. You go to Design, User Samples, and you click there, and it will take you to the full list of existing user samples. Once you've gotten to this page, you can click this plus button, and it'll take you to the Create Sample page. On the Create Sample page, you need to name your user sample file. So for example, we can name this test one, Sample Locations on the White Sand River. We then request you select an organization, and we have Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then you can select a contact name. So whoever would be the contact person for this user sample file. Enter that information, click Save, and you're now on the Basics page for a user sample file. This workflow is pretty similar to the workflow you see in protocols. You can navigate through the screens here in this menu. You can enter information in these text boxes. And as you go through, you can see you can enter and update your sample name. You change your organization, your contact. This button here allows you to turn on and off privacy associated with these sites. So for example, if you wanted to add your sites to Monitoring Resources, but you didn't want anyone else to see them, you could turn on location privacy. And then you could select the users that were authorized to see them. You could say, okay, Troy Smith. He's the only person that's allowed to see my sites. You could add multiple users. Okay. Also, Reed Camp can see my sites. You could also add a text file or a URL if you wanted additional information. We then ask that you define the target population. If you're not sure what target population is, you can click on this highlighted target population and a help box will pop up. We also ask that you define the sample frame. You can then document your frame area or length. So, for example, I think it's like 244 miles is the length of all the streams and tributaries in the White Salmon River watershed. And then you can click Save. If you don't click Save and you navigate off this page, your changes won't be saved. So now you've created the basics information, you can move forward to uploading a shapefile or a CSV file. So if you click on this Import from Files, you can see that here are all the instructions for importing CSV files or shapefiles. You can then read these instructions and understand how to format your file. In this example, I'm going to upload a CSV file. So I would put in my import type there. I would then choose what type of design category it falls in. So this example, it's going to be ease of access. Navigate to your file, click Upload. Wait for just a second. And then you can see if your upload is successful or has failed. Once you've uploaded a CSV file or a shapefile, you can no longer return to this step of importing from file. You've now defined your initial structure. Now that you've completed uploading a file, you can also add additional information to that file using this tool. So this allows you to edit the schema, so to add a column to that file that you've uploaded. For example, if I'm interested in identifying which of my sites are tributaries, I could add an attribute called tributaries. And I could define each of these fields. So for example, the description would be yes, no, to define if site is a tributary. And then I would want to select a display order. We're going to select 1, and then we could click Save. Now you've added another column to your file. If you'd like to edit that column, you can go to this Add Edit Site page. And in the Add Edit Site, you can see a map of your locations that you've uploaded from the file. And you also can see all the points. You can then click in this table and you can edit sites information. So we know Mill Creek is a tributary. We could click in that box and we can say yes. We know that Little Buck Creek is a tributary. And again, Little Buck Creek is a tributary. And then we said it was yes, no, so we would say that these are not tributaries. So I want to identify them as not tributaries. Then you click Save Changes, and those changes will be saved. You can go in here and you can edit all these other attributes. You could edit the site name if you were interested by clicking in this cell. You could edit the panel. You could even edit the lat long. And if you see this list and you say, okay, this is great, I have 9 samples here, but I want to add another location, you can click on this plus button here, and a map will pop up. You can then zoom around on the map. You can say, okay, I think that I'd like to create a sample spot up here on Spring Creek. You can zoom in. You can say, okay, here's Spring Creek. You can name that site. You can click on this green location button, and then you can click on the map, and that lat long will be added. And then if you click Save, it will add that site to your sample file. So you can see now this is Spring Creek. So you can click in the box and I can add a panel. Then you can click in tributaries and I can say yes, that's not a tributary. And you can hit Save. You can do that as many times as you like. You can add as many sites that way as you like. You can start with that step and you do not have to upload a shapefile or a CSV file. You can just start by coming to the Add Edit Sites and then clicking on the plus button and zooming around on the map and adding your sites. Once you've completed adding your sites and updating the data associated with them, make sure that you hit Save Changed. You can move to the last step, which is Review and Finalize. So what you're doing here is you're asked to look through the information and data associated with your user sample file. You can see the definitions you've written down for target population and sample frame. You can see all the sites that you've selected and you've entered. You can see your frame length and you can see the coordinate system. You can see that it's not in any designs right now, and then some additional information about the schema. Once you've gone through that, you can click Finalize and it will ask you if you're sure you want to finalize your user sample file. And then by finalizing your user sample file, you'll make it visible and available for other users in the sample designer. Once you finalize a user sample file, you cannot come back and add sites to it. So you have to know that going in. So click here, yes, we want to finalize it. And you'll see that the sample is now finalized, and you can go through and you can see all the data associated with it. Now, what we've asked you to do is to create a sample design. And what a sample design does is it takes these sites and it helps you assign them to a specific year or a specific rotation or in a specific time frame. So we're defining the actual design associated with this sampling. So if you go into Design and Sample Designs, it will open the full list of sample designs. And then you can click on this plus button and it will take you to create a new sample design page. And again, similar to all the other tools we've looked at, we want to name our sample design. So we'll call this WDFW, habitat sampling on the white salmon. We want to select a design type. This design type we've decided is easy access. And then we want to identify a study design. If you remember earlier in this exercise, we created a study design, so we'll select that from this list. So it was WDFW, monitoring of aquatic habitat in the white salmon. We'll select that, and then we'll hit this forward button, and we'll be asked a couple questions about our sample design. So then we want to know we'll be asked a couple questions about our sample design. So if you go through here and you're not quite sure about your sample design or what these questions are asking you, I'd recommend clicking these question mark buttons and some help will pop up that can help you guide you through the process. What we're going to do today is we're going to build panels into our design. So we check that and then we hit create, and the workflow for building panels is then built into our design. Again, similar to navigating in the protocols and all the other tools, you can navigate through the steps on this side. Starting with the basics as usual. You can put in your design name, and then you can enter a description. So tell a little bit more about the design. Then we ask you to add a description. So for example, with this design, we'd say something like, we're sampling for 9 years on the White Sand River. We have a rotating panel design with a certain number of tributary sites a year. We then ask you to define a start year and an initiation year. We also ask you to define a retirement year. So we're going to say 2027. We then request that you define a data repository. So you can go through here and look for your data repository. If your data repository is not in here right now in QA, that's okay. You can just select one of these data repositories and move forward. So we'll say WDFW website. You then can select an organization and then you can click save. Then we'll save all the data you've entered and you can move forward to the next step. The next step is prepare your sites. And see, as we've already uploaded a user sample file, we don't need to do this step. We can skip over to select. We now ask you to select your user sample file, and that's the file we just created with all of your planned monitoring sites for the length of your study. So let's do that. Here is our user sample file. Click in this box, and then you can click save. If you don't see your user sample file here, I'd recommend you go back to the user sample file tool and finalize your user sample file. That's usually the biggest hurdle. So click save once you've selected a user sample file. And then you can move on to the next step. This is the create panel step. This allows you to build in a temporal framework to your study. This allows you to assign sites to be sampled in specific years. So for example, we have 10 sites in our user sample file, but we don't want to sample every site every single year. So we need to build some sort of rotation. We want to sample 3 in the first year, 3 in the second year, and 3 in the third year. So we know that our study is going to be 9 years long, and we're going to have 3 panels. Then we hit this build panel button, and it'll build us a panel. So then we want to name them. What year you plan on sampling that rotation. So if we're going to build a 3-year rotating panel, we go to one set of site our first year, one set of site our second year, and a different set our third year. On our 4th year, we'd come back to the first set of sites, and our 5th year, we'd come back to the second, and our 3rd year, we'd come back to the third. So that means every 3 years you go back to a site. And then you can finish this out. You can then click save. That information will be saved. And you can move on to the next step. Once you've done that, you need to assign a number of sites to each rotation. So for this test, I'm going to do 3 sites in the first rotation, 3 sites in the second rotation, and 3 sites in the third rotation. You can see it then totals it up, 9 sites. I have 10 sites available, so that'll work great. You need to enter a number into oversamples. So if you say, okay, I'm going to plan on sampling those 3 sites, and if that doesn't work out, I'm going to sample how many sites. So for this example, we only have 1 site left in our user sample file. So we'll just assign 1 oversample to the first rotation. And the rest will get 0. You then click save, and you can move forward. Now you need to put specific sites into specific rotations. So we know that we have tributary sites and we know that we have main stem sites. In our rotation 1, we need 4 sites. We'd like to do 2 main stem sites. So we can select here and here. 1 tributary site. And then an additional tributary site. Once we've selected those sites, we can then assign a sample order. So we want to sample this site first, this site second, this site third, and this site 4th. You then click save, and those sites can be those sites will be assigned to that rotation. So then for our second rotation, so that would be year 2, and so on. We need to select one tributary site, so we'll select Mill Creek, and we'll select 2 main channel sites. And then we can do our third rotation, and we'll select again 1 tributary site and 2 main channel sites. Once you've assigned all the sites to the rotation they belong in, you click Save, and you'll save that information, and then you can click Forward to move on to the next step. And the final step is to review and finalize your sample. You can now see that you have your sample sites on the map, but then you can say, okay, I only want to see the ones that are in rotation 1. And you can zoom around, you can say, okay, there's a site on rotation 1, there's another site on rotation 1, and there's another one. You can then look at years, okay, what's going to be sampled in year 1, you can see those sites and so on. You can see the full list of the actual sample sites, their site ID, their panel, so on, their site ID and their panel. And then you can come down here, and once you've decided that the sample design defines how you plan on sampling, you can hit Finalize, and it'll ask if you're sure you want to publish your sample design. And then you can click Yes, and your design will be finalized. Once you finalize the design, you can no longer go back and edit it. So what we've done is we've created this tool for data collection. You can go to this data collection tool and you can report back on what happened in each of those locations. If it was sampled, if it was not sampled, if it was moved, and so on. I'm not going to demo this today because it's not part of this exercise, but if you're interested, I'd be glad to share it with you. If you're interested, I'd be glad to share it with you. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching the live demo. If you have any additional questions or issues, please contact me. My contact information is on the handout